Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I showed you a lot of instruments that were recorder-like that I called melody flutes on the last segment. So today I'm actually going to show you some more. I have brought in segments of instruments that I have. I have a lot of them. I haven't brought in all of them, and I've left some at home. I can't bring them all in at the same time, but you're going to see this segment, some that you didn't see on the last segment, and then next segment I think I'm probably going to even bring in more. At any rate, they're very, very interesting. And once you learn to play one instrument, there's a lot you can transfer to another instrument. And you can see me doing it because if I demonstrate an instrument, I'm using basically the same fingering patterns as I use for many of the instruments that I play. And that's, I think, probably quite noticeable. But that's all right. I want you to understand what you learn can usually be transferred to something else. So let me show you some of the colored instruments. Now, I bought these instruments because I love color and because the students that I have love color. And it's just interesting to see them. You know, some of them play all right, some of them don't hardly play at all. But they're all a part of my collection, and the thing of it is I can always use them to teach something. Even if I'm not going to be able to use them for solos, I can still use them as a teaching tool. So I thought I'd bring some of the brighter colored instruments that I have. Here's my little orange one. Now it's interesting that some of these don't have a brand name on them. I don't know who made them. And some of them, as I said, are playable, but they look like you could pull them apart. Now here would be the foot joint, this would be the body, and all of this here would be part of the head joint. And that's the way normal recorders are. However, I don't dare to pull it apart. It's designed to look like that. It's designed to look like it has three joints, but I would break it if I tried it. It's really only one piece and it's all together. It has much more of a normal hole on the bottom because the bore in some of those instruments that I showed you from India and from Peru, they have just a little tiny hole in the bottom. This is a normal sized hole, and if I were to look up, and you won't be able to see it, but I can, it's just clear all the way up. So I'm going to try this and see how it works. Now what happens when you hit the lower note? It goes up rather than down. Now that, you know, that's not right. The longer the tube, the lower the pitch. But I have a number of these inexpensive instruments that do it. At least it does play. Why it does that, I can't figure out, because it shouldn't be doing that. And it's just a plain tube, you know? So it does, I don't think I can do any octaves. When you get to the higher octave, it's all out of pitch, you know. It's not that I'm doing unusual fingerings, it's just all out of pitch. But what a pretty thing to look at, and kids love it. So there's the orange one. Now the same company made yellow, so I'll show this to you. Beautiful shade of yellow. Same thing. It's one piece, but it looks like it should be three pieces. Labium is right below the fipple mouthpiece, and this is the way that it is for normal recorders. The Indian flutes, the Peruvian flutes, and other flutes that I've shown you, even the sasutos and the penny whistles, the labium tends to be right on the mouthpiece. But this is right below the mouthpiece, and that is the way it is for most normal recorders, and you do have that tone hole in the back. I expect it's going to play just like the other one did. I think it's made by the same company. It looks like it, but there's no markings on it for me to know where it was made or what the company name is. It's exactly the same as the other one, but it's a very pretty little instrument, and they also put out a green one. I love green and yellow, some of my favorite colors. So here's the green one. For Christmas gifts, it's not too bad because you can teach certain things on it. You know, how you hold it, how you finger it, how you blow into it. All of that's perfectly legitimate, you know. You can teach that. But the thing is, you can't play a normal scale exactly because it's going to be out of pitch. And here's your tone hole for your thumb in the back. And I'll play it. It's the same thing. I can see where they've glued this together. I don't know as you can pick it up, but there's like little pieces of lighter material on the bottom. It's all been glued together. They made it evidently in 3 parts and just stuck it together and glued it. You see, I know it's the same company because it has the same bad note on the bottom. It has the same odd transposition to the second octave. But they're beautiful to look at, and kids love them. I want to show you this one. One of my favorites because I love the colors, you know, and it's made, and I think it plays a little. I'm not going to try to take it apart. I might be able to do it, but it's also breakable, so I'm not risking it. The lower note doesn't come in at all. It's basically a novelty item that has different colors on it and very attractive. Now, the same company has made that one, also made, and here again, the company's name is not listed on it, but also made this one. It's kind of a aqua bluish with pink on it, where this is clearly orange and green. So let me play this, which is probably going to have the same problems as the other one did. Why don't they make them right? You know, if you're going to spend all that money to make a toy, why don't you make it that works? You notice the same weak tones when I play it, how weak the tones are. The same was true of the other one with the orange and green, made by the same company. But you do see the block on it. You could see the block on the other one as well. It's just like a little line around it, but it's there. And you have the labium in the correct position. There's nothing wrong with the way that it looks. But for some reason, I think it's how they block off the air in the inside, which you can't see, because there is an area where they do block off air, so it'll go out of the labium instead of just straight down through. And every instrument has that. You can't see it on this one, but it exists in every instrument. Very weak, though. The tone is very weak. They're made the same. I want to show you. Let's see, let me show you this green one. I really like this green one. It's dark green, and here again, I don't know who made it, and I have used it, and it is all glued together. Here again, the lowest note does not come in. It flattens it a little, like a half a step, but it's not really quite a half a step. There's a gap in terms of the pitch between the lower and the higher register, so it doesn't really do that well. Okay, so that's the dark green one. I do want to show you 2 red ones here. These are interesting. This red one comes from China, and this red one comes from Italy. They're styled a little differently if you look at the bottom. This one is like a cylindrical one. It just goes straight down. It's made in China. They play pretty well, both of them. And this is Italian, and it has the shape a little bit of what a normal recorder that we would normally buy. The thing is, you can't pull them apart. They're one-piece instruments. They're designed to look like a regular recorder. There's a little difference in the style, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Let's try it. They are actually quite similar in the way that the holes are and the patterns. I'm going to just take one at a time. This one here is a Chinese one. The low note's a little sharp. You can get up to the G, but you start to lose it after that. You go down, when you get to the A, you drop down to the lower octave. But it's not bad. It plays fairly well. I'm not sure what key it's in. It's not in the key of C like it should be for its size, but it does play. Now this one here is made in Italy. Let's see what we got here. Here again, you lose it at about A. You lose it at the A. But, I mean, it does play. I actually have done solos on this, and it's worked out pretty well. Now, when I do a solo on an instrument like either one of these, Chinese and Italian, I can do a solo on both of them. But the thing is, I have to make sure the solo is in range with what these instruments can play, because they can't play an upper octave. So to compare them in terms of their pitch, they're about the same, not a lot of difference, except this one here from Italy is a little bit louder and a little bit more brash. The block is black on this one, and on this one the block is white. Usually the blocks are about the same color as the rest of the instruments, but in this case they're not. It doesn't make any difference. It just used a different color for the blocks. Why they would do that, I don't know, but as I say, it makes no difference at all in terms of how they play. So those two, and then I want to show you this blue one and this black one. These are called first notes. And the blue and the black, I do have a red one too, but I didn't bring it with me. I don't know why I didn't. I guess because I had other red ones. But this is blue and this is black, and they're first notes. Now, I bought it at a hobby shop in town, and I paid, I don't know, $10 or so for them. And I got to tell you, they're not bad. And if you get it in the packages, it'll say not a toy, a real instrument. And I took them out and played them, and they're right. It is a real instrument. It looks like a real instrument, and it doesn't have the power that a regular Casio or a Yamaha or anything like that has it, but it's definitely a step above most of the toys. And I would be able to play solos on it, and I have. So this is the first note. And I want to say also, it's in pitch. It really is a good buy. If you're looking for an instrument, you don't know as your child is going to keep it up. For a beginning instrument, for a recorder, it's not bad at all. Now I'll do the black one. Same thing. Whoops, make sure I get this right. They're not quite as good as more professional instruments, but they're very good if you just want to get something to get started on. And the fact is, they pitch very well. So I'm very happy about those. Let's see, what else do I have here? I bought these two. They don't play that well, but I bought them because I thought they were cute. And when you're teaching little kids, you do anything to interest them. And they're not exactly the same size as a regular recorder. They're a one-piece instrument. You don't pull them apart or anything. But then they have little characters on them. This looks like can't remember her name. I know who the character is, but at any rate, one of the characters, this is another cartoon character, that can be pulled off. They don't play very well, but I saw them as a unique little item. The other thing is that the way that the tone holes are pitched, the thumb hole, it's hard to get your fingers in the right position because this gets in the way. So your fingers are more or less crammed up together. They're real, I mean, my fingers are touching each other. They're crammed up together. It really doesn't play very good. No octaves, just a few notes, not necessarily in pitch, but just something that I bought just so that I could show it to somebody. And this one here, I imagine, plays just as badly. There's not really a change in pitch that much between one note and the other, but they're fun for little kids, and I thought I'd bring them in. Now, I also have the translucents. I've got time for the translucents. These are the instruments that you can see through. Pick them all up at one time here, but I only want to show you one at a time. So, most of them don't play very well. Here's the green one. You can see through it. If I put my hand on the back, you can see my hand through it. I like the color of them. They're sold for about $1 a piece. Most of them don't play very well, if they do play at all. And the value of having a translucent is if I'm doing a seminar on music, as I oftentimes do, it helps people to see how the recorder is actually made. It's nothing, it's like a plain tube, and all your apparatus is here right around the labium and the mouthpiece. And that's important, because if that doesn't work right, you don't get any notes. I almost don't dare to try these, because I'm thinking they're not going to work very well. They make some sound. They're about the same. Here's the orange one. I have another orange one here. Can you see that it was glued together and the glue dripped? But this is another little better one, but they're about the same. And then you have, and I do like these, these are clear on the bottom, plastic on the top, reddish or reddish orange, and blue. That's a very nice shade of blue. But what you can see is that it's basically a tube. You have a tube, and it just goes down. It's called the bore. It just goes down through the whole instrument, and you can pick these up. This is translucent. You can see through it. This not so much, but it is a very pretty instrument. And it's okay to show things to people. There's a block there, there's a labium there. If I turn it to the back, you won't probably be able to detect the block, but it is there. I can see it from here. So these two, and then we have another, whoops, let me put these down. I guess that's basically what we've got. Here we go. These are the ones you haven't seen. I like this purple one because it's one of my favorite colors, and it's got sparkles on it. You can actually see sparkles. If I turn it around, I hope you can catch it. It's just a plain tube. There's a little design down here to make it look like a little bit like a recorder. It has a labium in front. It has a light lavender block to it. and it's got sparkles all over it. Now I can see it because the light is hitting it, but I'm not sure that you can see it on television. Rick says you can see it on television. I have another one that's bright green with sparkles on it, but they're mainly for entertainment, and then you have the blue and the pink. I find a lot of people love color. I love color, and sometimes I'll buy an instrument and I'm not sure that it plays very well, and it probably doesn't, but I love the color. And if you're teaching kids, like I've taught kids a lot, I've spent a lot of time, over 9 years at a fine arts center teaching kids, teaching them woodwinds, but they love to see it. It interests them. And I've had adults come and they're just amazed by the color. They just love the color. Oh, look at the colors. These colors are so good. You know, these colors are so great. So I collect things like that. Now I have a lot of instruments within the last 2 segments that I have not brought in. I haven't brought in the ocarinas, I haven't brought in the melodicas, I haven't brought in the end-blown flutes, I haven't brought in the Israeli flutes, of which I have 2 or 3, I haven't brought in the pan flutes, and there's a whole group of them that I haven't brought in. But you have, within the last couple of segments, seen a lot of what I call the melody instruments. And the melody flutes, as I call them, would be your sasutos, and your flutophones, and your song flutes, and your tonettes. And instruments like these that I brought in, recorder-like instruments, where they're not exactly a recorder, but they're built somewhat like them, and they play somewhat like them. And I group them all together, and people like to see them, people like to use them. If I do a seminar, they like to fool around with them, and so it's very interesting to have instruments of different colors. And I think most people, if they play one instrument, they usually try to pick up 1 or 2 more instruments, so they're really playing more than one instrument. But there are similarities between the instruments, and as I've said before, you can transfer your knowledge of one to the other. Well, I've about run out of time. I do have more I want to show you next week that are recorder-like instruments. I may not bring in the ocarinas and end-blown flutes and things like that because you've seen them before fairly recently, but I do have one more segment that I want to bring in recorder-like instruments, some of them which play quite well. So we'll close it here, and please join me next time.